Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. First and foremost, man, y'all know what time it is. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. Share the video out. You know, we're gonna we're gonna get a little bit into it today. We're gonna talk a little bit about the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And there was another case that was overturned during this Roe versus Wade case, and that's the Casey case. I think it's Planned Parenthood versus Casey. We're going to get into some of that. We're going to get into some of the ruling of the Supreme Court. I said that they're on a winning spree, but that's my personal opinion, right? I'm going to try to keep my personal opinions out of the reporting. You know, I try to do that. If asked, or if I feel like it, I'll give my personal opinions. Like if you are and have been a follower of this platform, you'll know that I am anti-abortion. I'm anti-abortion. And maybe one of these days, hell, maybe Sunday, we could have a panel discussion on that so we could get, you know, differing opinions about this thing, basically a debate. I mean, we might as well just call it what it is, because that's all it's been, a debate. I mean, people have been saying some of the craziest stuff that people been taking personal shots and the whole nine. I'm like, God damn. So make sure y'all hit that thumbs up button. Make sure y'all share the video out. We're gonna get into some of this. So, of course, everybody knows about the overturned decision of Roe v. Wade. And I'm going to pull up the actual case in 1 second. Just give me 1 second, fam. All right, Abdul Sharif said something that's interesting that I'm going to be touching on, because it was something that was basically said by Justice Alito. He says Roe versus Wade being overturned is not the fight of the freedmen. Planned Parenthood is eugenics and is another method to attack freedmen population. And I've held that view for the longest as well. I don't like how my green screen look, man. I'm kind of getting tired of this green screen. It's not coming out the way that I want. But so what I want to do is let's get into the case.
Let's get right into it. Let me see. Let's get right into this thing, family. Make sure y'all hit that like button. If you want to support the platform, use the super chat. You know, Cash App, be the power. Go to our website, www.usadof.org. We are the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen is an official 501c3 organization. Make a tax exempt donation for the cause. We're building over here, brick by brick. I always said that, brick by brick. We are shoring up the foundation on this side of things. All right, so let's get to this. Let's get to this, man. Okay, so this is the Supreme Court of the United States. The syllabus, Dobbs. Let's see if I can blow that up a little bit. Dobbs State Health Officer of the Mississippi Department of Health et al., meaning and others, versus Jackson Women's Health Organization et al., meaning and others. Now, the Jackson Women's Health Organization is an abortion center, I believe it is, or an abortion group. I forget that fast, but y'all can look them up. Matter of fact, let me put the link to the PDF in the inbox. Y'all know how we do, fam. We like for people to read along. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go. Of course, obviously, I'm not gonna read this whole 200 plus page thing, but I'm gonna read a portion of the syllabus, and then I'm gonna get to two major parts of this decision because I think that it's being missed on everybody. Okay, so let's get into this. Certiorari to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. Argued December 1st, 2021, decided June 24th, 2022. June 24th, 2022. And this is kind of quick because usually these cases, like especially like this, they usually take about a year for them to get that final decision from the Supreme Court. Some cases, hell, even take 2 years. So let's read. Mississippi's Gestational Age Act provides that, quote, except in a medical emergency or in the case of a severe fetal abnormality, a person abnormality. I said abnormality. I don't know why I just got tongue tied right there, but it happens. A person shall not intentionally or knowingly perform or induce an abortion of an unborn human being if the probable gestational age of the unborn human being has been determined to be greater than 15 weeks. So basically, after 15 weeks, you can't have an abortion. I'm going to use the words of commentary as opposed to the words that I actually use. So you can't have an abortion. Mississippi Code Annex subsection 41-191. Respondents, Jackson Women's Health Organization, an abortion clinic, it is a clinic, and one of its doctors challenged the act in federal district court, alleging that it violated this court's precedents, establishing a constitutional right to abortion. In particular, Roe v. Wade, 410, United States 113, and Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, 505 U.S. 833. The district court granted summary judgment in favor of respondents and permanently enjoined enforcement of the act, reasoning that Mississippi's 15-week restriction on abortion violates this court's cases forbidding states to ban abortion pre-viability. The Fifth Circuit affirmed. Before this court, petitioners defend the act on the grounds that Roe and Casey were wrongly decided and that the act is constitutional because it satisfies rational basis review. So basically, what the Jackson Women Health Organization is saying is that they should be able to administer abortions after 15 weeks. I'll inject this personal opinion. I believe that as soon as the sperm fertilizes the egg, that is life. And if it wasn't so, then how do you ever grow to be the human that you are now? But I'll digress for now, but I may give some of my personal opinions later. Held, the Constitution does not confer, the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled, and the authority to regulate abortion is returned to the people and their elected representatives. Pages 8 through 79. So I'll read this short part of it. A, the critical question is whether the Constitution properly understood, confers a right to obtain an abortion. Like, that's something to think about. Does the Constitution, as is properly understood, not how it can be misconstrued, twisted up, etc., properly understood, can it, that instrument, the way it is designed and established, can it confer the right for one to obtain an abortion? Casey's controlling opinion skipped over the question and reaffirmed the Roe solely on the basis of stare decisis. Now, the Casey case basically was the one that, if my memory serves me correctly, and y'all help me out in the chat, restricted I got Josh in the background. I got Josh joining right now.
Peace.
The time frame on when these abortions can happen, right? So that's why they had to look at Casey as well, because Casey was basically an extension of Roe v. Wade. It says a proper application of stare decisis, however, requires an assessment of the strength of the grounds on which Roe was based. The court therefore turns to the question that Casey plurality did not consider. And then, it gives a breakdown. I put the link into the chat. I didn't read this whole document. Of course, I skimmed through it, and I was able to get a synopsis of why they overturned this case. And, some people were mad, and many people, they didn't read the case. They didn't read any of the underlying causes and reasons based solely on a constitutional standard. And I'm careful when I say a constitutional standard, because there are standards by which the Constitution has set its framework, and the court highlights those standards as it gives its decision. So let's go to, see. I got some of this stuff bookmarked, so bear with me. All right, so we're going to highlight this part right here. It says, under the court's precedents, rational basis review is the appropriate standard to apply when state abortion regulations undergo constitutional challenge. And that's what this was. This was the state of Mississippi it was a challenge to their abortion laws, which sets an abortion restriction, meaning that, 15 weeks. After 15 weeks, you cannot have an abortion. Well, this Jackson Women's Health Group wanted to challenge that. And in doing so, got the whole thing overturned. It continues, giving that procuring an abortion is not a fundamental constitutional right. It follows that the states may regulate abortion for legitimate reasons. And when such regulations are challenged under the Constitution, courts cannot substitute their social and economic beliefs for the judgment of legislative bodies. And it gives a case citation. That applies even when the laws at issue concern matters of great significance and moral substance. Meaning, how does whatever the law is and whatever the challenge to that law is, regardless of its social or moral application, how does it stand up to the Constitution of the United States of America? How does it stand up to that? And I want to read this part again. Given that procuring an abortion is not a fundamental constitutional right, it follows that the states may regulate abortion for legitimate reasons. So one of the things that we're hearing, especially from the liberal left media, is that a woman's rights to do what she wants to do with her body has been taken from her. But this was never a right. The courts wrongly, the court in Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey wrongly asserted that the Constitution gave this right. And it doesn't. And no one will be able to show you in the Constitution where this is a right. They just simply won't be able to show it to you. So I want to go to this next part, and then I'm going to get some commentary from my brother Josh. So let me see this next part. Give me 1 second, family. Make sure I got the right. And make sure y'all click that like button and share this video out. Let them know that we are having an important conversation. Okay. That's what I'm looking for right there. I think that's what I'm looking for. Bear with me, family. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. I'm trying to find a specific quote. I had it bookmarked. Okay, this is what I'm looking. This is what I'm looking for. All right. Oh, I was on the right page. My bad. I'm going to start from here. That form of reliance depends on an empirical question that is hard for anyone, and in particular for a court to assess, namely the effect of the abortion right on society and in particular on the lives of women. The contending sides in this case make impassioned and conflicting arguments about the effects of the abortion right on the lives of women. Compare briefs for petitioners 34 through 36. Basically, is given citations for each brief. The contending sides also make conflicting arguments about the status of the fetus. The court has neither, I want y'all to pay attention to this. The court has neither the authority nor the expertise to adjudicate those disputes. And the Casey pluralities, speculations, and weighing of the relative importance of the fetus and mother represent a departure from the quote unquote original constitutional proposition that, quote, courts do not substitute their social and economic beliefs for the judgment of legislative bodies. And it gives a citation, Ferguson versus Scruper. a 1963 Supreme Court case. It says, our decision returns the issue of abortion to those legislative bodies. That's key. Let me read that again. Our decision returns the issue of abortion to those legislative bodies, and it allows women on both sides of the abortion issue to seek to affect the legislative process by influencing public opinion, lobbying legislators, voting, and running for office. Women are not without electoral or political power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast ballots is consistently higher than the percentage of men who do so. So, Josh, based on what you've heard so far, what are your takes?
Uh, we taking the power away from centralized federal government. We giving it to the states to make their own decisions on this matter. That's basically state. We're gonna give this the rights and make it because this we're going to declare that this is not explicitly expressed in the Constitution. So that now that that's the case, it's not protected. So the states can implement their own policy regarding that. So I mean, me looking at it, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack with that. Just on the surface, we know that um, states, when you give states the rights to have power, generally that it may not work out well for us, right? But let me say this: this is the reason why. Now, people want to. It's a lot of people that hear what we talk about when we talk about the black home strategy, or I'll say Operation Closed Fist. When we talking about strategically relocating back to our states of origin in the South, a lot of people they got stuff to say about that, and they got all kind of complaining about what's going on in America. But we constantly got to go back to it and show you that this is the only real solution for us. If the Supreme Court is going to give the power back to the states, then we need to be having power in them states. So if we're going to be at the mercy of excuse me, be at the mercy of the states being able to legislate the issue, and if we are for it or against it, doesn't really matter if we don't have enough power to influence the state, then it's in our best interest to get that power to be able to influence the state. So no matter what the Supreme Court rules, we'll be able to make policy that protects us, that has our best interests in mind, because historically that's not been the case.
That's right.
Historically, when we, when the state, when the Supreme Court leaves these decisions up to the state, it's the state has been able to use it and twist it in a way to harm us the most. And we got to make sure that that doesn't happen. Not just with this ruling, and not just that's this is something specific. We can have a specific argument or a specific conversation about what this means, and how this is going to be moved. It's a philosophical debate or ideological debate. People that believe that women should have the right to terminate their fetuses, and people that believe that that should be illegal, and the states are going to make that determination. We can have that conversation, but I'm just trying to use this as another point to say, if they're going to make states have the ability to make these decisions, then we need to be in a position of power in them states. And you can't be in the position of power if we still scattered outside of the South. We need to strategically relocate back to the South to get the power. If you're really passionate about the issue and you want to do something about it, you can't do nothing about it. Uh, if you don't you can't do nothing about this and other issues that are serious about us, and you can't affect them nationally unless you have enough power. Let me say this too: if you are a person that is against this Supreme Court ruling, that is against uh the state, let's say the state of Georgia that you in, Naheem. If you're a person that's against the Supreme Court ruling, that's against the state of Georgia implementing policy that would be against your abortion perspective or whatever, then maybe you need to move to Georgia. Maybe you need to move to Georgia and encourage enough black folks to move to Georgia to do something about it. But that's my take on this. That's my perspective. Is what can we do to use this as a way for us to get power to change something about it? I mean, not just this, but uh, our issues moving forward.
Indeed. And that this Supreme, both of this case and the Second Amendment case for New York, to me was crucial. I want to go to something that Justice Alito said. I want to pull something up. Again, fam, make sure y'all hit that like button. Y'all can use that super chat. Cash App, be the power, support the platform. Support the platform, fam. So this, political, they were the ones that broke the story. The Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights. Draft opinion shows. So we know that there was a leak. Somebody felt so impassioned about abortion rights within the court that it leaked out. It leaked out. But am I going to read? So I'll read a little bit of this. Let me see. All right. So the draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and the subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. And I agree with that. It's not just because I'm anti-abortion. If I look at it through the scope of the Constitution, then it shouldn't have never been a ruling. It should not have ever been a ruling. So it says, we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. He writes in the document labeled as the quote unquote opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. The people's elected. See, I got a lot to say on this, but from a personal position, I'm going to try my best to not go there today. I'm going to try my best. But I do possibly want to have a roundtable discussion, maybe Sunday, on this topic. I don't know. I think this weekend is, July 4th festivities are kicking off, so I'm not sure. If not Sunday, maybe Monday. So I want to just go all the way down. I've read the article, but I want to get to this part right here. And let me put this link in the chat where Alito, let me see. Let me start here. The implication that allowing states to outlaw abortion is on par with ending legal segregation has been hotly disputed. But the comparison underscores the conservative justices' belief that Roe is so flawed that the justices should disregard their usual hesitations about overturning precedent and wholeheartedly renounce it. See, you can't make this sort of moral equivalent because the Constitution calls for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you can't do that in a segregated society. And I'll inject my opinion here. A baby that's aborted doesn't have a chance at life. So there's a way to argue that. Whether you agree with me or not, it's a fact. An aborted baby is gone. It doesn't have a chance at life, nor liberty, nor the pursuit of happiness because it just doesn't exist anymore. So, but people exist, and our people have been citizens of this country since day one. And that's just a fact. And we've shown that here on this platform, and we've exposed that, maybe 10, 12 years ago as well, when people were saying that the 14th Amendment made us citizens. Wrong. And if you don't believe that, Go and read Justice Curtis and Justice McLean's dissent in the Dred Scott decision. This is another pivotal landmark watershed Supreme Court decision that got overturned by acts of legislation because it wasn't based on the Constitution, family. Let me finish reading. Alito's draft opinion ventures even further into this racially sensitive territory by observing in a footnote that some early proponents of abortion rights also had unsavory views in favor of eugenics. Quote, some such supporters have been motivated by a desire to suppress the size of the African American population, Alito writes. It is beyond dispute that Roe has had that demographic effect. A highly disproportionate percentage of aborted fetuses are black. This is a fact. Since 1973, for every one black baby born, one black baby was aborted. Or we could say for every one freedman baby that was born, one freedman baby was aborted. Since 1973, some estimates put the number of abortions from 1973 until current day at 18 million. Some. I've seen some estimates but that was like 2011 that said it was 13 million. So between 13 and 18 million, not only is that a 50% halt in our population growth, it stops us from growing our population. And if your population is not growing, especially at the rate of other populations, then your political power weakens. Like, this is all politics, fam. And I'm going to get to an article. I'm going to get to an article on that. Alito writes that by raising the point, he isn't casting aspersions on anyone. Quote, for our part, we do not question the motives of either those who have supported and those who have opposed laws restricting abortions. But he felt the need to throw that part in there, that it is beyond dispute that Roe has had that demographic effect. A highly disproportionate percentage of aborted fetuses are black. Let me put that link in the chat. I don't know if I did. Like, we're gonna have the discussion in a real way today, family. You know, like I said, my opinions aside, I do have them. I am anti-abortion to the core, always have been and always will be. So I want to get to this article. It's called Racing Roe, Reproductive Justice, Racial Justice, and the Battle for Roe v. Wade. I want to highlight what Alito is speaking to. Y'all know how we do this. Wait, hold on. Let me put the link in the chat. And then, Josh, after this, I want you to come in and just, give some breakdowns on what I've read in conjunction with what Alito said. And, do you feel, and I'm going to ask your opinion on that, if he got that part right. But first, let's get to this. Okay, Racing Roe, Reproductive Justice, Racial Justice, and the Battle for Roe v. Wade. Let me get to the page. Okay. So this chapter is 5, I believe it is. Well, I don't know if this is the fifth point in this particular chapter. It says racial opposition to the birth control movement. No, that's not it. Excuse me. That's not it. That is not it. Where is it? There it is. Excuse me. Black genocide and reproductive rights. I can go back and read that other part, but I'm I want to get through it and have the discussion. But Black genocide and reproductive rights. A generation later, the strains of Black natalism that undergirded Garvey's Pan African movement were reflected in the nascent Black Power movement and its opposition to contraception and abortion. During the 1960s, changing sexual mores, concerns about state intervention in private life, and anxiety about unchecked population growth fueled efforts to liberalize or repeal entirely criminal bans on contraception and abortion. Despite these dynamics, Black nationalist groups resisted efforts to expand birth control and abortion in the Black community, and their opposition sounded in the register of racial genocide. Both the Black Panthers and Nation of Islam opposed birth control and abortion, albeit for different reasons. Like Marcus Garvey a generation earlier, the Panthers initially decried abortion and contraception as a form of deracination that deprived the community of a generation of potential soldiers in the crusade for Black freedom. Today, I would just call that a more bolstered electorate. By contrast, the Nation of Islam's opposition to reproductive rights was rooted in religious principles and the notion of racial uplift that was linked to the patriarchal family. For both groups, however, Black reproduction was necessary not only to erase the losses of slavery and Jim Crow, but also to populate strong Black community that could resist and indeed overwhelm and dominate the white power structure. So, when we look at Black RBG, red, black, and green flag waving groups today, they are largely political, largely aligned with the Democratic Party, largely pro abortion. They do not share the same sentiments as Garvey. Today's Nation of Islam, while I wouldn't dare say they support abortion, they are also aligned, deeply aligned with the narc and then Cobras and the RBG types who are aligned with abortion. Josh, after reading this and hearing what Justice Alito said about a part of, and it's hard to say it was a part of his reason. I felt that it was a bone that was thrown to us freedmen, to be honest with you. What are your thoughts on Alito adding, Black genocide? He didn't use the word genocide, but I mean, basically, he echoed what people like myself have been echoing for years, that abortion is basically a form of Black genocide. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we just can look at the results. Um, if you look at, one of what's the leading abortion clinic or organization around the country?
Planned
Planned Parenthood.
Parenthood. Mm-hmm.
Now, what was the opinion on the woman who started that, Margaret Sanger, about who should and shouldn't be having babies?
Mm-hmm.
Where did she put where did she put her clinic when she was getting started? I know she had a big one when she
Mm-hmm.
started Planned Parenthood. I believe the first one was in Harlem.
Yeah, I
And
believe
she
it was
and
Harlem.
she had
I had to
all
think about it.
freedmen, on her board, I believe it
Well,
was.
let me say real quick, John. Every Planned Parenthood billboard that I've seen, and there was one on my drive home from work that I would see all the time. Even when there were women of other ethnic groups in the picture, the Freedman woman was always first, and the other women were behind her. Always, always out front is what I meant, not just first. I mean, she was out front, and the two other women, it could be a white woman or a Hispanic woman, was behind the Freedman woman.
Yeah. So we know exactly. And I mean, if you just go and read about that Margaret Sanger, you can see basically she was saying that she believed in, that she tried to justify her eugenics, but Essentially, she was believing that those who had the greater economic means, you know, they needed they or let's I'll say this. I think this is more exact. Those with less economic means need to be having less babies. Well, who were the people that were held to having less economic means in those times?
That's
Those are
right.
the freedmen. They were the bottom of America. So she didn't have to come. Well, and I believe she is on record saying some of, if somebody can pull some of these quotes,
Hmm.
saying some extremely racist things that pretty much tell where her position is. Um, I've seen some of. I don't have it right in front of me now, but what the point I'm trying to make is she was one of the people that was heavily involved with pushing that. This is before Roe versus Wade, that ruling. So we know where all that's coming from, and we look at the numbers and see that I think as 13% of the population, we're 34% of abortions. So we're like, that's triple the I don't know if that's an accurate number, but I think we're thirteen
I mean, I
percent
got a
probably.
whole.
Yeah, pull that up, brother. I
I
think
mean,
we're
I
like
got a whole
34%.
list of. Okay, I'll pull it. Matter of
Yeah,
fact, this is what I'll do. This is what I'll do.
pull that up.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, bro.
but and lastly, I want to say that just like you find when Clarence Thomas made his ruling talking about and we're gonna talk about it soon, with uh, the striking down New York's ability to limit firearms and how people carry firearms. We see that when it comes down to trying to justify something, freedmen are always at the root of any type of claim to justice or any type of civil rights in America. It's always going to come down to the freedmen root. We're always the moral measuring stick, because we got the strongest story in America. We the ones that originated civil rights in America. So, you know, we got to look at that and just understand that stop. We don't need, like, that's the thing that makes it real frustrating when we did all of that. We originated civil rights in America, but then when you hear our representatives, people that's supposed to be representing us, they don't stand on that. You hear Thomas and they talk about Freeman. You hear Alito talking about Freeman and African Americans and our people back in these early times. But then when it's time to represent us and you need people to pull from our story, they want to call those freedmen people of color and all that kind of stuff, man. That's like,
That's
why
right.
is it that y'all can't stand on the historical freedman story when it's time to advocate for
That's
not
right.
only to justify what policy you're trying to push, but um, but to justify pushing policy for the freedmen today? Um,
That's right.
and not just for everybody else. And that's one of the things that, like, I see through what they're doing. Basically, they're saying, look, this is the highest claim that we can make. We got to get to that freedom. That's the highest standing that you can have in civil rights. We're the highest. The bar is set real high. We are the standard. So they have to go to that. And we're the most historically damaged group and damaged and aggrieved party in America. So it's easy to show how these type of policies have affected us in a negative way, more than anybody else in America. So my thing is, if they're able to come and show how abortion has damaged us in a specific way, if they're able to show how taking away two-way protections in certain areas has damaged us, they really know that. I mean, they building up the case for reparations, and they're giving us the pathway to use the status of freedmen to help build the case for that. So,
And
mhm.
with that said, let us segue. Well, not just yet, right? Because I want to touch on something real quick before we segue. You gave the perfect segue into the next portion, but there has been visceral hatred levied at Clarence Thomas. I mean, it's crazy. It's the what like they're calling him the N-word, porch monkey. These are the white liberals. And there are supposedly some black women out there telling white liberals it's okay if y'all call him the N-word. Y'all got permission. As if they they control who gets to say the N-word or not. It's the weirdest thing. But it made me think about the the organization that was founded by, I can't remember the name of it, by Frederick Douglass, co-founded by Frederick Douglass. Uh, what's the abolitionist's name? Susan
Garrison.
B. Anthony,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
what's the other one name? I think Elizabeth Cady Stanton,
Stanton. Yeah.
right? So Frederick Douglass was 10 toes down for women's right to vote. He, if my memory serves me correctly, he spoke at the conference in Seneca Falls in support of women's right to vote. See, those white women really only wanted it to be white women. And they felt that a white woman should have the right to vote even over black men at a time when no women could vote in the country. And I believe it was Elizabeth Cady Stanton that called him, not him, Frederick Douglass, but called black people. And she said, especially in the South, she basically called them animals. Like they wouldn't know what to do with a ballot if it smacked them in their face. I'm paraphrasing, of course. It's like these savages, they don't deserve to vote just because they're men. We're white women. we should be, and they flipped on them. And what I see with Clarence Thomas is not that he's just a right winger, but it's that he's a black man, a freedman man, a freedman man, meaning a black man as we're called in this country. And the visceral response that the suffragettes gave to black men is what the left today is giving to Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas, in my opinion, he threw us a bone. He threw us a bone, man. Shout out to the fam. Shout out to all of the mods and the members. Let me see. Man, people posting links in the chat from the Facebook all the way to YouTube. I think I'm gonna keep going on Facebook as well. But I think Facebook is kind of dying out right now. You know, our Freedmen brothers and sisters. You know, I gotta, yeah, you're right. Freedmen brothers and sisters, as opposed to saying Freedmen women and men. That kind of sounds weird. You're absolutely correct. I got, my bros be checking me on the back channel so I could get it right. So
My bad, bro. I was
no,
just
it's
that
cool.
you're not the only one. I hear people saying that. I'm like, uh, it just sounds kind of awkward to say a
No, I
freedman
feel it.
woman. You know what I mean? Like, I think freedman. It's correct. It just sounds funny. I
No, I
rather
feel
really
it.
say like freedman brothers, sisters. That's just
No, I
my
mean,
take on
you're right, and you're absolutely correct, So let's get into this other Supreme Court case. This is vital for the state of New York. So, syllabus: New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, Inc. et al. Versus Bruin, Superintendent of New York State Police et al. And et al. Means among others. Something to that effect. I used to know all of this stuff by heart. Certiorari to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Let me see. Argued November 3rd, 2021, decided June 23rd, 2022. So the Supreme Court is kind of moving on some of these cases, man. Usually these cases be taking a year and better So they're moving on these cases. I like to see that. Like I don't believe that these. I know they have like a crazy caseload, but I believe that certain cases should get pushed ahead of certain others based on their importance. And if the Second Amendment is a right enshrined in the Constitution, and it translates into carrying firearm for one's safety, because that's what it has been translated into in modern times, then New York is wrong. And being born and raised in New York City, they're wrong for their gun, because everybody that's like about that life in New York, y'all know what I mean, they got guns. And I used to keep a gun on me. It was illegal, but I used to keep it on me. And I kept it on me so I could protect myself. And at the risk of protecting myself, when the law changed, I could have gotten three years in prison automatically. Plaxico Burress, New York Giant, out at the club one night, had his firearm on him to protect himself. He's a football player. Shot himself in the leg. Had to do 2 years. They was like, nope, your star power won't work here. We'll shave a year off, fill up one of them suitcases and give give it to the judge. Okay, so let me read the syllabus, and then I'm going to just get to the Freedmen stuff. So the state of New York makes it a crime to possess a firearm without a license, whether inside or outside the home. An individual who wants to carry a firearm outside his home may obtain an unrestricted license to, quote, have and carry a concealed, quote, pistol or revolver if he can prove that, quote, proper cause exists for doing so. Let me tell y'all, fam, if you don't know about New York's gun laws and trying to obtain a carry license, it's literally like jumping through hoops of fire. It's like jumping through hoops of fire. Then you still got to wait a year. It's a process. And I believe that it's unconstitutional. And one of the things I meant to do and I forgot was to look up to see if New York's restrictive gun laws have anything to do with its freedmen population way back in the days when because New York ended slavery in 1827. And then you had, after slavery, you had this influx of freedmen coming into the city, and we couldn't defend ourselves. We were at the whim of white supremacist Anglo-Saxons, white supremacist Europeans from, immigrant Europeans, and other peoples that felt that we were, as white supremacist Anglo-Saxons thought us to be, low and deserving of every type of harm and infliction. We got Brother Grimm joining us right now as well. So let me see. Petitioners Brandon Koch and Robert Nash are adult, law-abiding New York residents who both applied for unrestricted licenses to carry a handgun in public based on their generalized interest in self-defense. The state denied both of their applications for unrestricted licenses, allegedly because Koch and Nash failed to satisfy the quote-unquote proper cause requirement. Petitioners then sued respondents, state officials who oversee the processing of licensing applications, for declaratory and injunctive relief, alleging that respondents violated their Second and 14th Amendment rights by denying their unrestricted license applications for failure to demonstrate a unique need for self-defense. The district court dismissed petitioner's complaint, and the Court of Appeals affirmed. See, it's so funny, right? The politics is not supposed to be in the courtroom, but the district court dismissing this claim and the Court of Appeals affirming that dismissal shows that these courts are not looking at the Constitution. They are looked at, which is why it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's duty is to determine the constitutionality of the laws of this country. That's why Dred Scott versus Sanford is ruled the number one worst decision in the history of the Supreme Court and was overturned by acts of legislation. And we're going to get into that too one of these days. We're going to get into the whole issue of blackness and Negro being a badge of slavery. That is coming. So it says both courts relied on the Second Circuit's prior decision in Kachowski versus County of Westchester, which has sustained New York's proper cause standard, holding that the requirement was substantially related to the achievement of an important governmental interest. Held, New York's proper cause requirement violates the 14th Amendment by preventing law abiding citizens with ordinary self defense needs from exercising their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms in public for self defense. Now, I'm going to get to some videos and I'm going to get to some articles that came out. But what's really important about this case is Justice Clarence Thomas's references of freedmen. He references the freedmen 8 different times in this particular piece. I'm not going to read the long pages. So I've keyworded freedmen, and I'm just going to go to those sections, right? So let me see. Let's start from here. Matter of fact, after the Civil War, of course, the exercise of this fundamental right by freed slaves was systemically thwarted. The court has already recounted some of the Southern abuses violating blacks' rights to keep and bear arms. Y'all got to understand this bone that was thrown to us in this Supreme Court holding. And the fact that they went back to the freedmen and making the determination to basically abrogate New York's restrictive laws on concealed carry to protect oneself. Right as we are resurrecting this freedman status. It's Providence, family. It says, let me see. All muskets and shotguns were taken away from freed slaves, as such weapons would be wrested from the hands of lunatics. And this was in the court holdings, and they're showing. And I, matter of fact, I don't think I put this link in here. Let me put this link in the chat. That's right, Sister Roz. This is for law-abiding citizens' rights to carry. That's right. We got I'm gonna address the distraction real quick. I am. I'm gonna address the distraction. I got you. Hold on. So Ty Anu, I know this guy from like 10, 15 years ago. One of them pseudo Moors. He said I'm guessing he's saying it was the freedmen that split the Anakusa and the Anakatawuha into the 5 civilized tribes. Bro, you was as pseudo then. You was as pseudo then as you are now, brother. I just wanted to just let you know that. I usually don't stop to address this stuff.
Let me add to that. It was the freedmen that got them civilized tribes. It was the freedmen that got the quote unquote black slaves of those 5 civilized tribes to the status of freedmen. So
that's right.
You need to understand that. A lot of our people was dragged in chains on them Trail of Tears and taken out to those 5 slave holding tribes. And it was the freedmen who fought in the Civil War to over 200,000 that whooped the Confederacy and ended up getting those people to have to agree to to change they governance to get those people out of slavery, to end slavery among those 5 slave holding tribes. So I don't know what you're talking about, brother, but you're not making no sense.
None at all. Thank you.
I'm surprised you even understood that. I didn't even understand what he was saying. No, I'm not even trying to diss him. I just didn't even understand Because I don't know what do you know, whatever. Go
Well,
ahead, go ahead.
when you see pseudo stuff for so long, it's not that you necessarily understand what's being said. You understand the pattern of the pseudo isms, and that's all I recognize the pattern of his pseudo isms. So let me continue. It says in the years before the 39th Congress proposed the 14th Amendment, the Freedmen's Bureau regularly kept it abreast of the dangers to blacks and Union men in the postbellum South. The reports described how blacks used public carried weapons to defend themselves and their communities. We're like, we got to think, family. It's a lot of different groups out there. Some of them are really about this reparations thing, I think, and some of them are pretending to be. That's why when they seen this, like, let me cut my camera on and get on YouTube, because I know them BTP brothers done seen all this Freedmen stuff in that Supreme Court case. I got to get people to come into what I'm doing over here. But see, this Freedmen thing ain't no group for you to join. We have an organization, the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, that you can join. Membership applications will be on the website soon. But this Freedmen thing is a political status that belongs to us via our emancipated ancestors. And that's just a fact. And you can't change that at all. And you can make all the arguments against it until you're blue in the face, but you're going to lose every single time. Let me continue. For example, the Bureau reported that a teacher from a Freedmen school in Maryland had written to say that because of attacks on the school, both the mayor and sheriff have warned the colored people to go armed to school, which they do. Our people were carrying back in the days before these people stripped that right from us.
It was suggested that they carry by the mayor and the sheriff.
That's right. And prior, it was showing that, the reports described how blacks used publicly carried weapons to defend themselves and their community. So, our people they had that right. And it should be no different in the state of New York. So it says, which they do, and the superintendent of the schools came down and brought the teacher a revolver for his protection. The superintendent, like, yo, those Confederate devils is crazy out here, man. Take this 6-shooter, and if they come messing with y'all start letting off. And I'm gonna play a video in a few minutes. Because I don't know what my people think after that Buffalo attack. They think it's sweet. These Confederates ain't playing. They're not playing. They've never stopped hating us. It is what it is. It is what it is. It says, and they give a bunch of citations noting how during the New Orleans riots, blacks under attack defended themselves with such pistols as they had. If I'm not mistaken, Grim, I believe they may be talking about the Yazoo massacre, if I'm not mistaken, because if that's what they're referencing, and if I'm correct, the Yazoo massacre was I want to say about 50 freedmen holed up inside of a courtroom, and they was going at it with them Confederates. They were going at it with them, but then the Confederates came with a war cannon and blew like the roof. It hit the top of the building and made it collapse on the freedmen. And of course, they were literally fish in a barrel for our people, and they went and slaughtered them. So let me see. I mean, most of this is. I just want to get to the Freedmen stuff, and then I'll open it up to the bros. I don't know. I'll play the videos first, and then I'll open it up. It's a little short, 30-second video. Two short, I think, 30-second videos. It says blacks had, quote, procured great numbers of old army muskets and revolvers, particularly in Texas, and, quote, employed them to protect themselves with, quote, vigor and audacity. And it gives the citations. Seeing that government was inadequately protecting them, quote, there was the strongest desire on the part of the freedmen to secure arms, revolvers particularly. I mean, that just sounds so sweet with me just reading it like that. On July 6, 1868, Congress extended the 1866 Freedmen's Bureau Act, C-15 Statute 83, and reaffirmed that freedmen were entitled to, quote, the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings concerning personal liberty and personal security, including the constitutional right to keep and bear arms. That same day, a bureau official reported that freedmen in Kentucky and Tennessee were still constantly under threat. Quote, no Union man or Negro who attempts to take any active part in politics or the improvement of his race is safe a single day, and nearly all sleep upon their arms at night and carried concealed weapons during the day. Concealed weapons during the day. And I'll read this last part, and then I ain't going to go through all of it, and then I'll get to the videos. Of course, even during Reconstruction, the right to keep and bear arms had limits, but those limits were consistent with the right of the public to peaceably carry handguns for self-defense. For instance, when General D.E. Sickles issued a decree in 1866 preempting South Carolina's black codes, which prohibited firearm possession by blacks, he stated, quote, the constitutional rights of all loyal and well-disposed inhabitants to bear arms will not be infringed. Nevertheless, this shall not be construed to sanction the unlawful practice of carrying concealed weapons, and no disorderly person, vagrant, or disturber of the peace shall be allowed to bear arms, meaning Negroes. You can't, they in the black code, like we got to dig into this, family. When they were trying to implement the black codes, right? And trying to restrict our rights, one of the things that they knew was that, yo, you can't just run up on one of these freedmen because they're going to pop you. And we know that if we don't see the gun, that, you know, we're unsure, but we got to be able to see the gun. So we got to restrict and limit their right to carry it concealed. And that's why I said, I wonder if New York, and I haven't read this whole thing, I admit, and I'm going to read both pieces from the Supreme Court in depth, and I'm going to break them down. I'm going to do what I do with this type of stuff. I've been doing this for years, and I've not had the cause to do it in the way that I need to do it with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and this growing up in New York City, this particular holding by the Supreme Court that basically overturns New York City's illegal practices of creating these hoops of fire that one must jump through to obtain a concealed carry license. There are brothers in jail right now doing 3 years. Automatic 3 years if you get caught with a gun in New York, who only wanted to protect themselves. This case holding not only shines a light on those brothers, it gives us some ground to stand on. So whereas we could start forming ourselves legal teams so that we could look at the Supreme Court is saying this now. Plaxico Burress's case, that should be wiped from the record. That man was an NFL football star on the New York Football Giants. He had a gun for his protection. He wasn't out there wilding, as they say. We say wilding, but they say wilding. He wasn't out there doing that. All of these things have to now be revisited, family. So I'm gonna end that. I'm gonna play these 2 video clips, and then I'm gonna let the brothers go in. Let me just play these real quick, and I want the bros to chime in. And this is in New York City. This one right here is in New York City.
Fair use.
Fair use. This is Channel 11. Now, this is a brother that just got robbed of, let me see, $7,500 worth of jewelry that was in his bag. So this group knew that he had this jewelry. Unfortunately, as young black men, they
You
obviously
think
fixed
that's a
his
brother?
brother Neki. Huh?
You think that's a brother?
Well, the young brothers definitely. I think
No,
that
I'm
may.
talking about the one they attacked, the one with his shirt off. That don't look
Uh,
like a brother to
yeah,
me.
you're right. That don't look like a brother. You are absolutely right. And they robbed this man. Right now, if he would have had a weapon, he could have brandished his weapon, and they would have been able to back off. He would have been able to back them up off of him. Let me put that link in the chat, and then I'm gonna share one more piece, and then we're gonna go in. We're gonna talk about it. All right, let's stop sharing that. Let's go to this piece right here. And we're gonna play some audio on this one. Because I want y'all to hear these devils.
Fair use.
Fair use.
What's the problem? Why are you interrupting me? I'm standing right here. I'm not getting knocked out.
So you see, let me play it again.
What's the problem? Why are you interrupting me? I'm standing right here. I'm not getting knocked out.
So we see, after what happened in Buffalo, we can't afford to just be grouped up like that without no weapons, family. And then you got white supremacists standing at your door, at the door screaming a bunch of crazy stuff, holding up Nazi swastikas. Brothers, what's your thoughts on that?
It was a swastika in the center of that flag. But if you look at the construction of the cross, it's really like a Confederate. It's styled as a Confederate flag with a Nazi swastika in the center of the cross.
That's right.
So yeah, but anyway, to the point, I think that like I said in the inbox, black people gonna have to start getting ready, getting prepared because it's as peaceful as of a people that we sometimes want to be. Sometimes sometimes you gotta go a different way, and I think that these people are showing that you're gonna have to prepare yourself. And being that the Supreme Court has uh, made it so that certain laws have to be relaxed in terms of being able to purchase firearms, I think this is the opening that black people needed because we know that this country has a history of disarming and keeping keeping the people, our particular people, disarmed, right? Disarmed and economically deprived. So that's I think we got to just take it all in stride and move, like sister is saying. This is this is about 2A. This is about exercising those rights that's supposedly protected by the Constitution for all of the citizens, not just privileged white people or and people that live in Republican states. You shouldn't be. It should. Your constitutional rights shouldn't be blocked from you just because you live in a democratically controlled state. That's not right. That's not right.
That's right. Grim, what's your thoughts, bro?
Oh man. It goes back to what I had always been saying to basically cover this. And Ali know what I'm about to say in regards to Justice Clarence Thomas. It's the freedmen that had to enforce the law or enforce the Constitution in order to save the nation. And y'all know that's basically what I always come back to, man.
That's right.
Basically, man, it was the freedmen. And in order to basically protect all of these rights, even the rights of many people who may not like us, man, they had to go back to that whole freedman concept. Because like Josh was saying something that was like very interesting. We basically the hallmark or the symbol of human rights, man. not only in this country, man, but basically before the world. And I can't remember how he said it exactly, but he basically said we're that symbol of all of those freedoms, excuse me. So of course you have to go back to the freedmen. You know, Muggs talking about Moors and this, that, and the other. And man, it was the freedmen that enforced the Constitution in order
That's
to
right.
save the nation. And
That's
you know,
right.
y'all know we had put that uh picture out of those Civil War soldiers who were fighting for the country, man, that they would have lost if it wasn't for those freedmen in arms, you know. And but you're right, bro. Like they don't really understand, or I don't even think that even a lot of the of our freedmen brothers and sisters, man, you know, go back and look at some of the things that they may not agree with Justice Thomas on. But man, you know, this, like the sister was saying, this week, man, or last week rather, he threw a lot of bones, like you were saying, bro. He threw a lot of bones our way, in particular with invoking, as we say, that Freedman language and tying back into Freedman law and in jurisprudence, man. And another thing I want to say, you know, even Ida B. Wells had to you know, I have to use this quote by Ida Wells, and she says that a Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home, and it should be used for that protection which the law refuses to give. You know,
How would you modify that statement today, Brother Grimm?
yeah, man, a AR-15. You know, an AR-15 should have a place of honor in every black home. You know, and that's just the bottom line. And you know, and I want to say this, and then I'm going to be quiet, man. That this week with Justice Thomas ruling, you know, and a lot of things that have been going on around these this whole thing, even with the abortion and them calling Clarence Thomas all kinds of ends and porch monkeys and things of that nature. I'm gonna try not to curse, y'all. And you know, this whole thing has really, to me, not exposed the liberal left, man, for what they really are. And it exposed how diabolical the liberal program is against the American freedmen. And you know, I can't say that I'm disappointed, as I would have to use the word 100% actualized against the liberals left ideology and the things that they represent, man. So I say don't vote blue 2022. And over the years, or over at least over this year and last year as well, you know, I found myself really digging into my conservative lifestyle and conservative understandings of a lot of things, man, because I really like realized that this whole liberal left thing, man, is really weakening the whole thing in the freedman male in particular, man. That, and this is not against any sisters, this is not what sisters live in their life, this is not what sisters is going through. I'm talking about the liberal left as a power, as a group. um it is really living to destroy everything that the freedman male is supposed to be, man. So you know, we have to look at these things, man. And I'm just grateful, man, at this, and I thank Justice Clarence Thomas for pointing these things out in the brief, man. So hey, you know,
And it wasn't just Clarence Thomas, man.
right,
You Alito,
right,
right? People was like, y'all letting these people trick y'all? No,
no,
they're not tricking us. We
right,
know who these people are. But if you're not gonna look at things through a political lens, then you're not gonna understand how these people just in maybe possibly trying to do some sort of pander gave us more wind beneath our fledgling
Right.
wings.
Mhm.
These people don't see that.
Right. They had to go back to Freedmen jurisprudence in order to protect the people that possibly don't even like Freedmen.
That's right, bro.
Protect their rights.
I
That's
mean,
right.
most of them prove that. They
And that goes back, Naheem, to what I was saying, that people do not really realize. We talk about 1776 and 1778 and things, and that's great, man. But really, man, 1863 and 1865 of the Reconstruction was actually the second founding of the United States, and it's an important period to understand, to link into everything that's going on today.
Hey, Grim, that's a fact, bro. I gotta say, I was at on this past Father's Day. I really enjoyed it. I had brunch with my family, my mom, my sister, my nephew, my nieces, and my son, my wife. We all had brunch, and then after that, I was trying to go to the African American Smithsonian in D.C. and they didn't want to go, so I was like, all right, catch y'all later, and I just walked to that joint myself, and man, they had a powerful. It was a long line for people to try to get into like the main exhibit, which is like a walkthrough of history from the 1400s to today, as far as you know the story of our experience in America. Then, but it was no line, and it was hardly nobody in the other one. And the other exhibit that they had was Reconstruction and Freedmen. That was the exhibit that they have there. Matter of fact, Naheem, I don't have the link, but if you can try to find that link to that exhibit, I might have talked about it already. But my whole
what was
point
the name of the
is
exhibit?
a lot of people put up so
Can y'all hear
much
me?
attention. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh my, go ahead. I thought
A
my
lot
mic
of
was
people put a lot of stock and a lot of attention to the civil rights era, right? But and that was, a powerful moment in our history, where we were able to get policy passed, and but the thing that's different is we see the results from that, and we don't we that really didn't do it for us. That really didn't do any. I ain't gonna say it didn't do anything for us, but it really didn't bring the equality that it was purported to bring. We look at our situations and our levels of wealth, and the gap between is expanded since then, and education levels and home ownership levels and all kind of asset levels, and the degradation of society, the erosion of the family, and now, not only that, now we have it to where other groups whose rights were secured under our work uh, are have gotten way ahead of us. I mean, we for those who listen, and many of you know the statistics, and for those of you who don't know, let's just give one example of California. California is home to a large percentage of the American freedom population, and in California, and I think in particular Los Angeles, the median freedman household wealth is, and they don't say freedman, they say native black, but the middle native black family household wealth is about $4,000, according to recent studies. In the middle, in as a comparison, largely first generation group, Indian Americans have household wealth of 460 times that of 400, excuse me, 460,000. So what's somebody do the math and see what's the increase in percentage of that. Now, how is that a thing? Like, how is that a thing? So obviously the 65 era policy didn't do for us like it was supposed to do. And it didn't do for us even anything close to the reconstruction was supposed to do, and got off on the trajectory to do for us. And that was even with racism still being embedded in the society, you know. But see, the difference is you can have racism embedded into society, but when you have economic and political power, then you got something to do about that. You got something. But when you still don't have any economic power, you still don't have any political power, you can't do anything about the systems that are in place that are keeping you at the bottom. So that's what the result that we see. So Graham, when you say focusing on the Reconstruction period and focus, and I like to juxtapose that to the Civil Rights era period. And when we're trying to go and
Yeah.
see what do we need to do moving forward, I say we need to look at more doing Reconstruction again or focusing on that Reconstruction era policies. And that's why you see when we're talking about things in our politics, we're anchoring in we're anchoring it in Freedmen. We're not anchoring it in Civil Rights Act of 1964. We're anchoring it in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the 14th Amendment, and things like that.
Right.
The 13th
13th
Amendment,
13th Amendment, and all of
the
that.
1870
That's right.
uh, Enforcement Act, the Freedmen's Bureaus Act. That's one of the things that Clarence Thomas was pointing out in his commentary of his opinion was the importance. If you read it, you'll see that he was really digging into the importance of the Freedmen's Bureau Acts in protecting and preserving the constitutional right of freedmen or free men to bear and keep and bear arms. That's what was really important about it, and that's something that Thaddeus Stevens. Remember, we posted about Thaddeus Stevens earlier this week, and was talking about, Darity made the comment that Stevens was a real hero. A lot of people don't know it, but when you start digging into that man's history, you start to see that one of the things that he was adamant about was the freedmen being able to arm themselves to be able to protect themselves, and so he wanted to ensure that that kind of language was inside of the Freedmen's Bureau bill, so that it be enshrined in there, so that the people understand that these people have a right to keep keep arms and protect themselves. You know what I mean? And so that Freedmen's Bureau bill was very, very important too.
Yeah, and let me say, right, and I just want to let the people know. I want to read something else from the Clarence Thomas, Clarence Thomas's portion in the Supreme Court case for the New York Second Amendment, right? But either Sunday or Monday, we're gonna host a roundtable discussion, and we want to bring in people that have differing opinions, but we want to get into some things. We're gonna get into some things about, because I said I'm gonna restrain from my personal views and feelings today. I think I've done a good job of that. I've been expressed on this platform on several occasions that I am anti-abortion, always have been, always will be. Always have been, always will be. I remember, I'll tell a quick story, and I'm gonna talk about this during the roundtable discussion. I was up late one night. Uh, Me and my daughter's mother, we had got into an argument, so I had dipped. And I was up late one night. I was watching. I'm young, man. I went to my mom's crib, and I couldn't go to sleep. It's like 2 a.m, and that's when they had the UHF. Am I saying that right, Ali? The UHF channels,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the other channels that remember we had that other dial on the TV, that
Hmm.
bottom dial with all them numbers,
That was
and
it.
it was nothing on, and I'm just scrolling through, and there was an abortion documentary on, and they literally showed the process. And I already couldn't sleep. It's like 2 a.m, I think this came on, and they showed how they performed the abortion, and it devastated me. I'm talking about, I probably stayed up to 6 a.m just thinking about what I had just saw.
Mm.
It had devastated me, and I want to touch on that when we get into this conversation, because Or to me, all of these matters, this Supreme Court holding on the Second Amendment rights of New Yorkers and the overturning of Roe v. Wade centers us. It centers us. And I wanna get I'm gonna get a little deep into that. But I want to read this because Ali made me think about something when he was just speaking about what Clarence Thomas rooted his arguments in. He says, around the same time, the editors of the Loyal Georgian, a prominent black-owned newspaper, were like they did some research. They did some BTP type of research for this piece.
Hey, what you saying? The BTP really be doing Supreme Court level
We be doing
research?
Supreme Court level research. We different. I tried to tell people that before. We different. It says around the same time, the editors of the Loyal Georgian, a prominent black-owned newspaper, were asked by quote unquote a colored citizen whether colored persons have a right to own and carry firearms. The editors responded that blacks had, quote, the same right to own and carry firearms that other citizens have. The Loyal Georgian, February 3rd, 1866. Look at these dates. Page 3, column 4. And borrowing language from a Freedmen's Bureau circular, the editors maintained that, quote, any person, white or black, may be disarmed if convicted of making an improper or dangerous use of weapons, even though no military or civil officer has the right or authority to disarm any class of people, thereby placing them at the mercy of others. So the Loyal Georgian had this
That's
article,
powerful, man.
right, with this specific language that they took from a Freedmen's Bureau circular. And this is what Clarence Thomas chose to use as the backbone of why they overturned the case in New York with the gun restrictions in New York. It's up on it's on the Freedmen to take this thing even farther. Yeah, y'all go ahead.
Brother Naheem, I want to say something about how New York even got those. What caused New York to even institute the law
I didn't
about the concealed firearms?
I didn't look into that, Joe. I
Yeah, I
meant to
think
do
it
that.
had to do with the 1911 Sullivan Act.
Mm,
And if you understand, I I I mean, at that time it was a rise in street gangs,
hmm
particularly with Italians and others coming over from Europe. And that's why you think about the gang, that movie called The Gangs in New York. They didn't have freedmen as a predominant group causing terror in New York like that, committing all kind of wild murders. Um, so they didn't they didn't a lot of people assume just because New York has gang violence in the projects in New York, and then that we're the ones that's the main ones that's over criminalized with these gun laws. But that's not why they put the laws in place. They put the laws in place because of a lot of those European immigrants that were in the ghettos and that were doing organized crime and unorganized crime, just wild crime, and that's why they put those in place. So I just feel like it's a racial undertone or direction that they try to keep justifying that, like, oh, these Negroes is keeps killing each other with crazy murders in the hood.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that's not what they put them concealed carry laws in place.
okay, see, and it's crazy
Yeah.
because if you look at what I read, if you look at even in the 16, yeah, go ahead, Ali, while I pull this up. I'm gonna pull up this. This is going back to the James. Watch this.
Yeah. I had heard about that a long time ago, Josh. That it really in New York, it really wasn't a quote unquote race thing as much as it was um,
Right.
a class issue in terms of who should be able to carry and who wasn't able to carry. And so the people that you're talking about, like certain types of white people versus certain other types of white people, they didn't want um, lower class white people to be able to carry. So it was more like an elitist thing more than anything, from what I remember of it. And you're right about the 1911 Sullivan Act. I just kind of looked at that real quick, and so it definitely, it wasn't a race-based decision in terms of the way they maneuvered those laws at that time. It wasn't really about race. It was about, I think, more. I would say class. It was more of a class thing, or maybe ethnic, but I don't think it was based on black people are doing all of this violence, because that wasn't the case at the time in New York at all, not at all.
Indeed. Let me pull this up real quick. These are from the Jamestown, Virginia laws, virtual Jamestown. This is another thing, like when the pretenders be talking that crap, man, I'll be killing them people with this stuff. Because in these laws, there are several statutes that define Negro or black person from Indian. One of the acts says the first time Negroes and Indians are basically what's the word I'm looking for? Distinguished, basically. Okay, so this is January 1639 through 40. This is 1639. I want to show y'all. That's why when I was thinking about New York's act, their gun law, their restrictive gun law, of course, the first thing I'm gonna think of is something that's against our people, right? So this is 1639. Now this is while voluntary servitude is still going on, not the slavery that we know today. It's leading up to that part. Each one of these laws like this are chipping away at quote unquote black people's liberties so that they could just enslave them for life. And if you look up the John Punch case, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. He's the first quote unquote Negro that gets sentenced to a lifetime of servitude, if my memory is correct. But let me read this. It says, all persons except Negroes to be provided with arms and ammunition or be fined at pleasure of the governor and council. Now, there was slavery during this time. Like I said, that was
Which colony is this
1639.
from?
That's Virginia. That's
Okay.
Virginia. So this one right here is a 1680 act, an act for preventing Negro insurrections. So slavery is like kind of starting to kick up now. It wasn't like that in 1639, obviously, because
you mean perpetual servitude.
Huh?
Yeah, you say slavery was kicking up, but it was perpetual servitude.
Perpetual servitude. But all right, peep the language here. June 1680. And let me put this in the inbox as well. I gotta share this with the fam. Y'all gotta bookmark this, tuck this away, so we could have, And one day we need to, man, we ain't never do that joint on New York. We need to go ahead and do that show, that live stream on New York. All right. The summary says this law prevents an attempt to restrict the freedom and personal rights of enslaved persons. The members of the assembly also decided that a slave who resisted a white individual was to be punished. The statute designated the punishment for 3 crimes: leaving a plantation without the permission of one's master, raising a hand against the Christian, and resisting capture after running away. So in 1639, yeah, go ahead, bro.
So there was a difference between a Christian and a Negro.
Oh yes, When you look
Just
at,
wanted. I already know. I just
oh yeah,
want.
well we know that. Yeah. That's right. Well, we know because we've been on this stuff for years, like
Yeah, in
years.
some cases, y'all remember that some people could get freedom.
So I'm not gonna go read this whole thing, but I'll just read some of it. Whereas the frequent meeting of considerable numbers of Negro slaves under pretense of feasts and burials is judged of dangerous consequence. for prevention whereof for the future, be it enacted that the king's most excellent majesty, so y'all know this is still colonial times, it's 1680, by and with the consent of the General Assembly, and it is hereby enacted by the authority aforesaid, that form and after the publication of this law, it shall not be lawful for any Negro or other slave to carry or arm himself with any club, staff, gun, sword, or any other weapon of defense or offense, nor to go or depart from his master's ground without a certificate from his master, yada, yada, yada. I don't got to get no more deep into that. So I just wanted to pull that up to show my rationale of why I thought that the New York gun laws was based on how whites saw us. I remember in my housing projects, Hamels Projects for Rockaway, Queens, or any opportunity I get, I shout out where I grew up at. The cop, we was sitting outside chilling, like we do in the hood, right? Chilling. And the cops come up to us and they pull up on us. They made a couple of us sit on the ground. I wasn't sitting on no ground at all. And the cop was basically saying, because we was like, yo, we ain't doing nothing, man. We chilling, we having a conversation among ourselves, and y'all basically just being a-holes coming up and harassing us. And the cop said, I could charge y'all for assembling I think he said more than three. I think it was three of y'all assembling without an American flag. I was like, man, get out of here, man. He was like, no, it's true. When you get a chance, I want you to look it up. Soon as them dudes left, that was always me. I went right and looked it up. I was like, holy crap. This is true. So when this opening line says, whereas the frequent meeting of considerable numbers of Negro slaves under pretense of feasts and burials is judged of dangerous consequence, that's the first thing that dredges up in my mind, what that cop said to me.
Now,
Mhm.
no, my bad. Go ahead, finish.
Okay, go ahead, bro.
Because I was going to go somewhere else, but I want you to finish your story.
No, that was basically it.
No, leave that on the screen. Leave that.
Oh, okay.
Because I wanted to go into that.
Hold on. Let me pull it back up.
It's something we have to touch on because if people see it, they're gonna say, "I don't want nobody to say anything."
All right. Hold on. Let me pull it back up. Hold on. Let me pull this.
Sorry if the TV is loud in the background. My bad.
All right. Let's reshare.
It's actually the 1682 at
The
the
one
bottom, November
okay.
November 1682 Act, an act to repeal a former law making Indians and others free. We don't, because we're not, I mean, I said, we got, look, come on. Two acts passed in November of 1682. This is something else. Join Native Americans and Africans into one racial category. The racial category was Negroes and other slaves. So let's read what it says. And be it further enacted by the authority, therefore said that all servants except Turks and Moors. Remember, some of y'all might remember, I said a while back on a show, one of the shows we were doing, that my father used to always say that our people were Turks and Geechee. That's what he would. I said that he would always say our family was Turks and Geechee, Turks and Geechee. So you see right here it says, "Be it further enacted by the authority of us, the authority aforesaid that all servants except Turks and Moors, whilst in amity with His Majesty, which from and after publication of this act shall be brought or imported into this country either by sea or land, whether Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or Indians." Who and whose parentage, and I wanted to point that out too, because I want people to see that the whole Moorish thing is not pseudo. It's not pseudo. They acknowledged people known as Moors back in 1682 in Virginia,
That's right.
and it's right here inside of the Virginia colonial legislation. You see it. So it says whether Negroes, Moors, mulattoes, or Indians who and whose parentage and native country are not Christian, at the
Mhm.
time of their first purchase of such servant by some Christian, although afterwards and before such their importation and bringing into this country, they shall be converted to the Christian faith, and all Indians which shall hereafter be sold by our neighboring Indians. So
Mm.
Indians sold by who?
Mm. I ain't see that one.
But see, no, but I mean that's
Y'all
some.
know what I'm about to say, right?
What's that?
Woo!
I'm about to say, ooh.
Hey, listen. This is one of the aspects of it, and I'm gonna finish reading the end part. This is one of the aspects of the Indian slavery story that's not talked about. It's the fact that Indians enslaved Indians and sold Indians to white people. They also enslaved Africans. You
Mm.
see what I'm saying? So they were doing all of that. They were doing all of that. Indians were enslaving other Indians, and they were selling Indians to Europeans. Then it says, so Indians which shall hereafter be sold by our neighboring Indians or any other, or the other thing Indians were doing is they were slave catchers for Europeans. A lot of
Hey,
Indians
that's
were acting
that's
as
that
slave catch. Go ahead.
Yep.
that's the one tribe that Cato was talking about. I mean, Brother Marcel was talking about in South Carolina, the one that
The
Clyburn.
Catawba, the
Yeah,
Catawba,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, or any other trafficking with us. As for slaves are hereby adjudged, deemed, and taken to be slaves to all intents and purposes, any law, usage, or custom to the contrary notwithstanding. So I just wanted to, number one, acknowledge that Indians were enslaved in North America. But there's some
Yeah.
context to that is also being left out of the story when we talk about Indian enslavement. How did they become slaves? Well, Indians were enslaving each other. Yes, Europeans enslaved Indians, but Indians were enslaving other Indian groups and then selling them to Europeans. So that's a part of the story too. Go ahead, man.
Hey, Ali. And where else? Because I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. And where else did that happen, brother?
In Africa,
Exactly. And it speaks to, it also speaks to the sanitized view that we grew out of and we grew up from, that these Afrocentrics and the Pan-Africanist community, they tried to paint this sanitized view of this almighty supreme white man that basically enslaved these poor, good old, pure Negroes running around Africa, when in actuality, a lot of our ancient ancestors, rulers, were all tied up into that slave trade and making money and building fortunes upon fortunes and fortunes, you know what I'm saying, against the worker class African, the artisan, the architect, the engineer, or whatever, and putting us on slave ships, man. And all of that stuff ties in together, and that's why, I don't tout that sanitized view, and I don't get mad when they say that those, our own people tossed us on them slave ships, man. And the uh uh they even had the actual articles.
I'm just showing some, some more support to what Ali was saying that his father said about these are articles that we had years ago. The Free Turks and Moors of South Carolina.
Can
I
y'all
got a
hear me?
I got a bunch of
yeah,
Peace.
we can hear you,
resources out
Glenn.
there. We hear you, bro. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Ali.
No, that was it. I just wanted to point that out because I know it was on the screen, and I didn't want anybody who is watching it to say, "Hey, they skipped over that part. They didn't want to say nothing about that part, but it's right there on the screen." No, yeah, yeah, we
Hey,
see it.
the whole thing about it is like, it's not necessarily that the legitimate Moorish connection is pseudo. For me, what I'm saying is the people who basically descend from that institution called the Moorish Science Temple of America and its various branches are for the most part pseudo. It's not the historical
Right.
context because we know that this whole thing called America was an outgrowth of the fall of the Moorish Empire. We don't deny that, but
That's a
it's
fact.
all the pseudoisms that basically descended from the teachings of Drew Ali. And I also, everybody always talk about Drew Ali, or this, that, and the other. But the bottom line, man, I think, they had the brother Lewis who was teaching Moorish history, I think, 43 years before Noble Drew Ali was even born.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I'm looking at some of these these acts, right? And I keyworded the word African. And this is 16, these acts, these laws in Virginia start in 1629. I'm gonna get back to the topic. We kind of swaying a little bit, but it's relevant to some degree. I brought this up to show why I was thinking the way I was thinking about New York's early gun laws. But I see how many times the word African is used in the early laws, even in conjunction with the word Negro. And at the least, at the least, this is what the commentary is saying, that these people were recognized as Africans. March 1655, 56, Act 1, an induction to the acts concerning Indians. Colonial legislators created a distinction between Native Americans and Africans in this statute. If the Indians shall bring in any children as gages of their good and quiet intentions to us and amity with us, then the parents of such children shall choose the persons to whom the care of such children shall be entrusted, and the country by us, their representatives, do engage that we will not use them as slaves, but do their best to bring them up in Christianity, civility, and the knowledge of necessary trades. And on the report of the commissioners of each respective country, that those under whose tuition they are do really intend the bettering of the children in these particulars, then the salary shall be allowed to such men as shall deserve and require it. And I think that that's deep, that this particular legislation created that distinction, because if we are the same, right? Because the pretendians, they say that we had the same skin tone basically as the Africans. So in many ways, we were indistinguishable. And even if our skin tones were lighter, then we still shared the same features. A light skinned person that's a quote unquote Negro is still looked at as a Negro today, not as anything other than, not as an Indian. If anything, that person, especially if he or she is being looked at by some outside the race, using that term entity, then they would be looked at as someone that has white blood in them. So this was kind of deep. We'll get into this another time, but I
Hey,
wanted
bro,
to go ahead, bro.
are we did you want to get into the 14th Amendment?
Yeah, let's dig. Oh, we're coming up on 2 hours. Let's dig in real
Hmm.
quick if y'all want to. Let's dig in real quick, and if
Let me
y'all want.
start by saying about
Mhm.
the 14th Amendment. I said on Twitter that the 14th Amendment was an amendment established for two main things, right? At least two things. One thing was to secure the citizenship rights of the freedmen, and what I did was I put a few excerpts into the tweet from the Congressional Globe when they were debating the 14th Amendment, right, and its provisions. They were debating it in the House at this point. It hadn't even gone to the Senate yet, but they were debating it in the House, and I put a few excerpts in there where Thaddeus Stevens is actually breaking down the purpose of the 14th Amendment. Two main purposes. Like I said, number one, to secure the citizenship rights of the freedmen. We should remember we shared this with Sister Camilla too, right? We was talking about it. Um, Number one, to secure the citizenship rights of the freedmen, and number two, to disable the citizenship of the rebels, Confederate racists that tried to destroy the United States. So those are the two main purposes of the 14th Amendment. I just want to put that there, and then we could, go.
And that's important, right? And the reason why it's so important is because the 14th Amendment is being used in if I'm not mistaken, both cases cite the 14th Amendment. I
Yep,
believe I read from the New York
yep.
case, but the Roe v. Wade case, particularly, they used the 14th Amendment to say that there is somehow a right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. And that right to privacy extends to if a woman should abort her baby. I use another word, but I said I'm going to be cool tonight and save it for the discussion, right? Abort her baby. It extends to that. So, what Ali just said about the two purposes of the 14th Amendment, we got to keep that in mind because what we have now are mere outgrowths of what the 14th Amendment was designed for. It was designed for freedmen.
They're
That's first and
construing
foremost.
it. They're
They're
cons-
construing
they're
it and, it,
construing
and
it for their
misconstruing it.
purposes. You're
That's right.
misconstruing. That's right.
That's right. Right. So it, we know that because in the New York Second Amendment case, Clarence Thomas is using freedmen history, specifically speaking about freedmen's rights to carry weapons. He could have went with any other history, the right to carry weapons. He could have spoke to states where you have the right to carry, but crime may be lower than in states like New York, where crime in Chicago, the cities, I should say, in Chicago, where crime is always high, right? In these particular cities where you have some of the strictest gun laws in the country, some of the strictest gun laws in the country. He could have went there, but he couched his argument in this freedman history because that's what these Reconstruction acts are about. They are about the freedmen. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment is about the freedmen. Those civil rights acts of 1866, the Enforcement Acts of 1870, 71, the Civil Rights Act of 1875. These are about the freedmen and our rights. And that's one of the things that we're going to get into when we do the live stream on Black and Negro being representing the badges and incidents of slavery. We're gonna go deep on that one. So it wouldn't shock me if some of them justices watch BTP, Brother Grimm. it would it wouldn't shock me, man. Like, and that's not bragging or boasting. We give a in-depth analysis, and we've been doing so for the longest. Shout out my brother Logic. Shout out to my brother Logic.
One of the things that Logic
Yeah,
said, let me just say this real quick.
bro.
One of the things, it was very important that he said a while back was that he was saying he believed that Abraham Lincoln was trying to set up the Confederates to be enslaved. Right?
Mhm.
So because of the 13th Amendment's exception clause, where it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist in the United States or the territories except as punishment for a crime whereby the party or the person was duly convicted. The point is, at the time, what they were looking to do was convict Confederate rebels for treason, particularly the officers of the military members, the officers of the military, they were trying to convict them for treason. Remember, Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy, was supposed to go on trial for treason. It didn't happen. The radical Republicans wanted it to happen. They even put together a jury of 6 white men, 6 black men that was supposed to actually be the jury to hear this particular case against Jefferson Davis. And believe it or not, Jefferson Davis himself wanted to go on trial because he felt like he had a superior position. He was going to argue that he didn't do anything wrong by trying to secede. He only followed in the footsteps of the colonists who, quote unquote, went to war with Britain to gain their independence. So that was going to be his argument. It's like, he's going to say, if what I did was illegitimate, was some kind of violation of international law, of the law of the Constitution, if what I did or what the Confederacy did was wrong, and we were not a valid nation, then the United States is not a legitimate nation because it did the exact same thing in order to break away from Britain. They went to war with Britain. The only difference is they won the war, whereas the Confederacy lost the war. That was the only difference. And so that's what Jefferson Davis was prepared to argue. And they didn't take him to trial because they were afraid of him setting some kind of precedent that secession was a constitutional thing, that to secede from the Union was actually, because if he'd have won, they said it would have set a precedent that secession is constitutional. Then you would have had that kind of issue, coming up again and again. And so they didn't take him to trial. And then there was a later Supreme Court case that says secession was not constitutional, was unconstitutional. Secede, basically, the point was that people can expatriate, but the states are part of an indestructible, indissoluble union that can't be destroyed. So that's what they were saying. If you want to expatriate from the country, you can, but you can't take the state with you. So basically, that's what happened. But yeah, Jefferson Davis was supposed to, him and others were supposed to be tried for treason, and if they were found guilty, based on the
Executed.
13th Amendment, yeah, they could be executed, but based on the 13th Amendment, if they didn't execute them, they could imprison them, thereby being able to enslave them and put them in involuntary servitude. So that's the
And,
point that Logic was trying to make,
mhm.
is that, go ahead.
And he also made a good point when he said we wasn't doing none of the criminal stuff. We were literally law abiding citizens.
That's a fact.
So who were those provisions set up for? Family, something to think about. Again, shout out to our brother Logic. Straight up. I don't want nobody to ever get it confused or twisted.
The
You
only
got
pushback I have to that is, um, if you understand where did that exact language come from, it wasn't like something they came up with during that time. That language in the 13th Amendment, the
Yeah, it
slavery,
came from another piece of, yeah, the
yeah, it
Northwest
came from that.
Ordinance, right?
That's right. Of I think it was like following the Revolutionary War, when Britain had to cede territories in the Midwest, Ohio. Because you think about it, you don't hear anything about. We talked about New York State having abolition in 1827, and Massachusetts doing abolition later, and other northern states doing abolition, but you don't hear anything about the abolition of like Illinois and Indiana and Wisconsin, Minnesota, and these places. And the reason is because they never had legalized slavery there in under the United States of America, because when that land was ceded to us by Britain, something part of the Northwest, what is it called, the Northwest
Northwest
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Yeah, that they had the language in there of the 13th Amendment.
Mhm.
That
That's a fact. And
So
and
that's kind
believe
of
it
where
or
they got it
not,
from. Mhm.
even the language being in the Northwest Ordinance, it comes from an earlier piece before that. It actually existed in another piece. I was just looking at that
Was,
not too long ago. I can't
was
remember what it
was it the
was.
Kansas Nebraska Act?
I don't think it was that. It could have been, but I don't think it was that. But it was another one right before the Northwest Ordinance that had the same language in it. And the interesting thing, Arthur Ward was just talking about earlier today in the space that we had on Twitter, he was talking about the fact that his family, even though
Oh,
Illinois wasn't supposed to be a slave state, he said his family were actually enslaved in Illinois.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about enforcement. Who's going to
Right.
enforce them acts, and then
the
who's
Kansas,
gonna who's gonna stop you? You could be in a free place, but who's gonna stop somebody from kidnapping you and selling you somewhere?
the Kansas Nebraska Act came way after, way after the Northwest Ordinance. So I'll just
Yeah.
Look for another Northwest piece. It was, I think it was
It,
also called a Northwest something before the Northwest Ordinance.
yeah, it's one of 1787. I think it's one of 17, and it's coming from like the Treaty of Paris or something like that. So it's one in 1784, I think. Well, at any rate, we talking about this
I see
old
one that says
centuries
the
old.
Land Ordinance of 1785, and it
Yeah,
says
yeah,
it was similar to the 1787 ordinance. So
There you
yeah.
go. That's
I
probably
think
it.
that's what, yeah, I think that's what you're referencing. Is that both
I wanted to
laws?
take it to another piece because you were talking about Thaddeus Stevens, and we talk about um Thaddeus Stevens all the time. He brought out the HR 29, which really was, and we I hadn't seen that document. Remember, Ali, last year, man, we were looking for that document for like
Hmm.
weeks. We had to dig and dig, and we actually found the HR 29 document. I don't. Do you still have it, Ali or Naheem? But
Which document?
yeah, that was like when we talk about reparations. That was like the first piece
HR
I had seen
29.
come from Congress to be proposed. And in that document, they had us getting like cash money. They had us getting land. They had us getting basically houses built on the land, and things built on the farm, money to run the farm.
Yeah,
It's like
that was Thaddeus Stevens. That dude was, he wasn't just an abolitionist, he was a reparationist. He was
that's right.
really trying, I said, um, Thaddeus Stevens is like the legislative version of John Brown
Yeah,
because
that's what I was
Hmm.
thinking as well.
he was really trying to crush them Confederates, man. But he was trying to do it legislatively. He was trying to stomp them
I
people into the
think
ground, man.
I think
And Charles
Lincoln.
Sumner too.
That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. But this Stevens was in a class of his own to me. Sumner, if I'm not mistaken, got beat over the head by
Yeah,
one of them Confederates in his
yeah.
office with a
He
cane.
he eventually died from them injuries. Yeah.
Yeah. And damn, what was I about to say? Oh, I forgot that fast. But I got the HR 29 bill pulled. Oh, I was about to say Lincoln. I think Lincoln messed up a lot though. I've been looking into that Wade Davis bill that Lincoln pocket vetoed. And had Lincoln not pocket vetoed that bill, it would have put severe restrictions on the Confederates, right? Especially insofar as where their loyalties lie. In fact, had the Wade Davis bill, in my opinion, had the Wade Davis bill actually been enacted, I believe we don't even see Confederate flags today.
Hmm.
So yeah, that we're gonna get into all of that. We gonna get into all of that over time. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna get into all of that.
Man, this thing right here, HR 29, was powerful. Imagine being a freedman in those
Oh
days, and
man,
hearing about this or reading
or
this.
somebody reading it to you. It's like
Yeah,
this is what they're working on. You just fresh out of slavery. I'm trying to find.
Right.
This is they talking about the 40 acres that's gonna go to every citizen. Some people strictly think about General Sherman's Field Order
No, it
15.
was more expanded than that.
Yeah, this is way
Yeah.
more expanded. And these are the unbroken promises, the overthrow. Again, to each male person who is the head of a family, 40 acres. To each adult male, whether the head of a family or not, 40 acres. To each widow who is the head of a family, 40 acres. You see, so when people like Candace Owens was talking to, one Caribbean to another with DJ academics, and they basically trying to crap on the freedmen by saying, I came to this country with nothing. Or you might have came with nothing. You was 11 years old. But what did your parents have? What
Come
did they
on.
build up so that they could pay to get over here? So when they make this claim that they came with nothing and they were like,
They be lying.
see, I know the brother Tariq Nasheed had to sit down with him. So I don't know. That interview was coming out Monday. I just know that the conversation coming from this end would be drastically different.
I'm looking
because we're gonna
forward
show
to it.
stuff. Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
want to
forward
see
to
it.
it because
Definitely.
I know he gonna clean that dude
Yeah,
up.
he gonna,
I'm
plus
looking
he's gonna
forward to that.
school that dude. He's gonna school him. But you know, we get into a little more technical stuff like these House resolutions that never seen the light of day because of Lincoln's assassination, and then we get to draw a line from then until now, and we get to show the charts and the dates and destroy those arguments once and for all. And then ask someone like a DJ Academics, bring Candace Owens on the next time. Let's see if she could, because she's good at articulating right-wing, blackface, racist talking points. But let's see if she can do that live and in person with one of us sitting there. And I doubt that she'd be able to do that. Matter of fact, there's no doubt she wouldn't be able to do that. So let me see. I'm
Yeah,
trying
he
to get
talking about putting
mad, bro.
$500 million in a account and 6% interest on it, and,
I
and
got it pulled up right here.
getting paid on that twice a year or something
All
like
right.
that.
Let's go back. Let's read that part real quick. In section 5, and be it further enacted that out of the balance of the property thus seized, and they're talking about the Confederate rebel property, and confiscated, there shall be raised in the manner hereinafter provided a sum equal to $50 for each homestead to be applied by that word is
Trustees.
trustees hereinafter. I'm glad you've seen that because it's super blurred on my end. Hereinafter mentioned towards the erection of buildings on the said homesteads for the use of said slaves, and the further sum of $500 million, which shall be appropriated as follow, to wit, 200 millions shall be invested in United States 6% securities, and the interest thereof shall be semi-annually added to the pensions allowed by law to pensioners who have become so
Man,
by reason of the late war.
come on.
300 millions or so much thereof as may be needed shall be appropriated to pay damages done to loyal citizens by the
Come
civil
on.
or military operations of the government lately called the quote unquote Confederate States of America. And 6, and be it further enacted that in order that the just discrimination be made, the property of no one shall be. I'm trying to get to the other part of this. It was another part. I don't know if it's on the other page, man. But yeah, basically, man, we were supposed to be getting reparations out of this whole thing, and it didn't happen. It just did not happen. And because of such, we are, as a whole group of people, in the economic conditions that we are in today. We would have gotten our 40-acre land parcels to build businesses, to farm, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we probably would have industrialized the South as the North began its industrialization. But
Yeah,
I mean, the industrialization was ongoing, but I believe we would have been able to catch up with the industrialization because 40 acres is a lot of land. A lot of land.
not only that, I gotta take it back to, I gotta put a pin in this right here and take it back to the proposed amendment. So the I believe the 13th Amendment was a joint resolution, right? So for
Hmm.
those that don't understand what a joint resolution is, you need a joint resolution when you're trying to get something like an amendment to the Constitution or some type of temporary thing like a commission. So that's why if you look at what they're doing with HR 40, they got HR 40 and they got S 1083 because you need a joint resolution to create that commission. So well, and basically we just both houses of Congress simultaneously, presenting similar or mirroring policy proposals, and they getting an agreement on to do it at the same time, basically to just to fast track the bill to move forward. And 13th Amendment was a joint resolution like that. But what Charles Sumner tried to do was he tried to uh get he tried to like change the get his proposed amendment solution slid in as a joint resolution like amendment at that time. And his, let me read you his says, this is a quote: all persons are equal before the law. No person, all persons are equal before the law, so that no person can hold another as a slave. And Congress shall have the power to make all laws necessary and proper to carry this declaration into effect everywhere in the U.S. That was his proposed uh 13th Amendment. That is powerful right there, because with that, it would cut through a whole lot. We wouldn't have that exception that keeps us enslaved in prisons today. And it will really go to speak to the 14th Amendment in many ways. I'm not saying it can be a complete replacement, because it has other clauses and things in the other sections in the 14th Amendment that had their particular purposes, particularly to um like Ali said, disable the insurrectionists and the rebel traitors. But that of the phrase "all persons are equal," what does it say? All persons are equal under the law.
Right.
Now, if I had to do anything to that, I will put some language in there that says all persons are equal under the law as or all U.S. citizens or something like that shall have equal rights or something like that. Equal under the law, because you know, I you know, or I put some clause in there to disable aliens also.
Indeed, indeed. So, I mean, y'all want to touch on any more?
Yeah, then one last
Yeah, go
thing,
ahead, go ahead, go ahead, bro.
Naheem. One last thing, and we said we were kind of. This is one I don't even know if we kind of said we may not even want to put this out there like that. You remember what I was talking about? But some people know about it. Um, and that is that Corwin Amendment.
Yeah, well, we could talk about that another
all
time, man.
right,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right,
Let's talk about that one
all
another
right,
time.
yeah, yeah. We maybe need to do some prep to
Hmm.
to
Yeah, we gotta. That's yeah, yeah. We
just
got.
to,
That's
to to
something we
make the
gotta.
conversation, because that right there, it opens up a whole another can of worms, and or maybe I fall back on that.
Indeed, indeed. Ali, you wanted to share anything before we start winding this thing down?
Nah, I just put the link to the tweet that I did about Thaddeus Stevens in the chat, so people could click on it and then they can view the screenshots of the excerpts of the House debates on the 14th Amendment, so they could see what it is. Because I know I've said in the past that the 14th Amendment. As a matter of fact, I did, it was like a two tweet thing. In the first tweet, I said the intent of the 14th Amendment and borrowing from the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which it did. For those who don't know that, the 14th Amendment does borrow language from the 1866 Civil Rights Act. But I said, in borrowing from the 1866 Civil Rights Act, the intent of the 14th Amendment was to secure the citizenship rights of American freedmen. It's also to disable the citizenship of treasonous rebels. Then I said, now, if the SCOTUS restricts its meaning to its original intent, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm fine with that, because a lot of other things have come up uh, based on this 14th Amendment, but it's a whole construing of the 14th Amendment outside of the original intent, which you will find in the congressional debate surrounding that particular piece of that particular law. You'll see it what the intent of it was. So now it's being construed to give constitutional rights, like the right to gay marriage is a 14th Amendment constitutional right. Um, the right to abortion is a 14th Amendment constitutional right. You know what I'm saying? The right to become a citizen just from being here is a 14th Amendment constitutional right. It's a lot of things that the 14th Amendment has been misconstrued to mean when all actuality, when you read about it, the only thing they were debating is how to secure the citizenship rights of the freedmen. That's all they was really talking about. All of this other stuff that they coming up with now is a construing based on the fact that certain people sit on the bench and are able to make those kinds of constructions out of the law, and based on their interpretations and how they want to twist it.
So
So,
basically loopholes.
well, I mean, you could call it a loophole, but the fact of the matter is, the Supreme Court has they have the constitutional power to interpret laws to mean what they want it to mean. So they're interpreting it and construing it or misconstruing it. And a lot of times it can go against the original intent of the law, which is what they did with the 14th Amendment in a number of instances.
Including um what was it, the over what is this, over something in Hughes, I can't remember what it was called, but
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about, that
Mm-hmm.
right to
Same type.
marry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of it, what it is like we the freedmen break the doors down, and then people, you know, step over top of us, then we done knock the door down and trample us, and then run through the door and get all the food, and then we picking our teeth off the floor and trying to get ourselves together to get to the table, and then we ain't got nothing but um crumbs and bone gristle and stuff left on the plate.
That's right. And you know, it just goes back to the Clarence Thomas piece on the New York gun case. Let me get the exact citation for that. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, Inc. versus Bruin, Superintendent of New York State Police. There was also a case, real quick, a few years ago. I think is what really kicked this whole thing off. There was a woman, I think she was a white woman too, traveling from the South to New Jersey. And she had her firearm in her trunk. If I'm not mistaken, it could have even still been in the case, the case that you get when you purchase a firearm. And she got pulled over and they searched her vehicle and they found the gun. She got sentenced to 5 years. 5 years for that. And I think that set everything in motion for a lot of these arguments. Like if I was in prison in New York right now and I knew about this, and maybe this is something for my New York people that we can link up and start maybe flying some kites, as we say, into the prisons and letting them know we may have a constitutional challenge to your gun case if you wasn't shown to be some reckless person that was just in the streets and you felt that you needed to carry your gun for protection, but it got, you got arrested. I mean, and did time and are currently doing time, or possibly even did some time. I don't know, man. I would want that expunged from our record. I would definitely want that expunged from our record. So
Yeah, especially if, I mean, if they find that this law is unconstitutional, that doesn't mean it. I mean, you know, y'all correct me if my understanding is off, because I really don't know the precedent. But if something is unconstitutional today, that just means they found that it's unconstitutional today. But that doesn't. But what about yesterday? Was it unconstitutional yesterday when they put me in jail for that?
that's
It
right.
was unconstitutional today. It's unconstitutional yesterday. It's just that the technicality of them declaring that it was unconstitutional happen today. So those people that are in prison um for things that are now deemed unconstitutional, it should be some motions or some efforts put in place to help soften those blows, or to get those charges or something off the record, to get some of those people out of prison, in the same way that you saw the effort was made once they started legalizing marijuana. A lot of those people started to we have a call for those people to get they commutations, or all that kind of stuff.
That's right. I mean, even let me read. This is from abort73.com. And I'm going to get into this when we have the roundtable, but I want to read this because you just made me think of that, or made me think of this particular piece. It says, based on the January 2018 estimate, that there have been 60 million abortions in the United States since 1973. That's just mind-boggling. 60 million abortions in the United States since 1973. We can deduce that well over 18 million of them were performed on Black babies. As of July 2017, the Black population in the U.S. stood somewhere around 40 million, which means that abortion has reduced the size of the Black community by more than 30%. And that doesn't include the grandchildren. That doesn't include the children and grandchildren that would have been born to those aborted more than a generation ago. Let me put that link in the chat. So when we think about the unconstitutionality of Roe v. Wade, which becomes law in 1973, the time period that this particular website is speaking to, what happens if we are not aborting our babies and our population is growing and growing and growing and growing? Do we, as a country, then have to force ourselves to finally look at the reparative justice that's needed? Because we can't just say, well, let them abort themselves, let them murder themselves, let them, what's the other one? Abort and commit crimes and incarcerate. We don't have enough prisons. Then how are we going to deal with this problem that we created, that this country created? As you were speaking, it made me think about that. The unconstitutionality of Roe v. Wade could have saved 18 million freedmen lives who would have had children and now grandchildren right now. Grandchildren right now. So something to think about, fam. And like I said, we're going to have a roundtable discussion on this. And, we're going to put the call out to hear both sides. And it's going to be a debate. I'm just letting y'all know straight up that it is going to be a debate, right? And it's going to be respectful. We're not going to get crazy and personal. I said earlier when I was talking, I had people taking personal shots at me today over this discussion. I'm like, damn. I was like, let me fall back. I'll say something personal.
Let me say one more thing in regards to this particular Supreme Court. And this is just my opinion. I know we really saving the opinions, but I'll just end with mine. In my opinion, this America it's a lot that's just gone way, way too far out there, and is way too loose in interpretation. Just pretty much anything goes. And I mean, I just feel like some entity has this come in and rein some of this stuff back in. Unfortunately, if it's we got a Supreme, and so there's a Supreme Court that they seem to be doing some of this. And like you said, Ali, bringing things back to the confines of the original intent. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And if reining some of this stuff in that you know that's caused some problems in America, whether you want to say it's moral problems, I say it's social problems, economic problems, and leaving that unchecked, uh, I don't see how that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, you can't tell me that, and I don't want to use only extreme examples, but you can't tell me that, you know, how the ability for somebody to have a late term abortion because they were irresponsible or whatever the case may be, and to they're able to kill a baby, but once the baby comes out, they can't they can't drown it in the swimming pool, or they can't, poison it or something like that. That's, to me, that needs to be addressed. Now, I'm not an absolutist, and this will probably be good for the roundtable, but I'm not an absolutist. So I don't like to say because one, because the laws doesn't, I don't think there should be, I think there should be exceptions to everything, right? But it can't just be complete no accountability, or anything goes. So if this Supreme Court, I guess, if there's any silver lining as far as society goes, some of the stuff needs to be reined in and reinterpreted, and given some type of parameters. Because right now it seems like there's no type of parameters. Look, just, I mean, the literal sense of parameters deal with the literal parameters of the United States border, the border of our country. It's like anything goes there too. You know, I saw, I was speaking on the Supreme Court. Maybe I spoke too soon, because I saw something that came out a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, where it says Supreme Court um basically said it's okay for Biden to take back the Trump era um restriction on, um like, he put some COVID related restrictions on the southern border, which basically is preventing a lot more migrants from coming in, you know, and they say because it may create diplomatic issues for, negotiations and doing business with Mexico, uh, from government to government. To me, I don't know about that particular ruling, but only thing I have to say is we understand that when it comes to illegal immigration, a lot of people, these conservatives, if this is a conservative court, we know the conservatives like their slave labor, right? They like their slave labor and they like their cheap labor. So if their ideology may be keep the illegal immigration coming along, because we're going to need a class of people that we can exploit, not export, we can exploit, and we can not have to be subject to labor laws. And if you're going to leave it to us to enforce, then we're not going to enforce the law of citizenship on these people. We're going to do it selectively. We're going to do it in places where it's politically advantageous for us to do so, and we're not going to do it in places where it's economically advantageous for us not to do so. Right? So I don't know. I'm still waiting to see how they rein in this immigration, because especially the legal immigration, this thing needs to be reined in. It has to be some type of parameters on this thing. So I don't want them to just attack. I don't want them to just attack their ideological aims and anchor that in the Freedmen history like everybody does, because the left does it too. When they try to give stuff away to everybody else, they try to first anchor it in the Freedmen, but then when they want to, they anchor it in the Freedmen history only. But then when they want to delve out the benefits, they give it to people of color and minorities and all this kind of stuff. LGBT women, white women, and you know, everybody that is included under the protected classes under the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah.
So I want to see them do more and not just do the ideological stuff. Go ahead. I'm done, y'all.
No, no, no doubt. I just want to play this real quick. So I thought it was interesting. It's only a minute long, but I think it's relevant. Hold on.
I ain't waiting till 9 months later. I'm getting rid of this. But go ahead. But when you do that, you compound the pain because now you've made a conscious decision to kill human life to cover up your lawless behavior. You ain't gonna get away because Allah says in the Quran, He will wake you up in the middle of the night and the babies that you kill will start speaking to you saying, what did I do to deserve death? How the hell are you going to answer? What are you going to say? Well, I had my schoolwork to do. I had a career. Well, if you had a career, why the hell didn't you focus on it?
Bam.
So yeah, so that's that's basically where we're going to be coming from it with on the angle that we're coming from on this platform when we have the discussion. Like I said, I didn't want to get into a lot of my personal feelings and beliefs, etc. today because I wanted to focus on what was written by the justices in the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the New York gun Second Amendment case that was basically where the Supreme Court basically overturned New York's very restrictive concealed carry laws. And I believe that groups need to take it further. And I believe that we as freedmen, being that Justice Thomas, he used the freedmen. I mean, it's all he cites the freedmen 8 different times in that piece that we now need to champion for concealed carry in the state of New York for our protection. It's wild out there, man. I share stories on my wall on Facebook all the time, and I just put Gotham without Batman. So it's crazy. And all of the people that's doing all the crazy stuff, they got guns. And all of the stories is about these innocent victims. That's not all of the stories, but a lot of the stories are about these innocent victims that's just walking. Just walking. Sister walking with a stroller. She done got like 9 restraining orders and domestic, something different, domestic abuse cases on this guy, et cetera, et cetera. And then this dude just walks right up to her while she's pushing her baby stroller and shoots her in the head. Maybe if she was concealed carry, she could have protected herself. She could have protected herself. She was like, oh, here come this crazy dude, and backed out like, yo, what's up? I'm just saying, that sister will be here today. She'll be here today. So, on that, we got to give Justice Thomas props.
Yeah, I got a jet, bro.
All right, yeah. So we winding it down. We ending it right now. Shout out to everybody that tuned in tonight, and I'll read what Recovering Pan-African said before I get off. I have to walk a fine line to rein in how far left the USA has gone. A strong man or woman can bring in a fascist state. Power corrupts if it goes unchecked. Oh, that
I
is
agree.
true. That is true. And I think that we as freemen represent that balance, which is why they never, ever wanted us to be in power in this country, because they know that we represent justice. And Martin Luther King always quoted this a quote that he made famous that says, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So we are going to get up out of here, family. Be on the lookout. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell icon next to it so that you can become a part of the notification nation and be informed every time Be the Power goes live. And we leave y'all with the motto of the platform, and that is, matter of fact, let me cite my brother Logic's saying first, and then the saying of the platform. Politics, government is the game, and politics is how it's played. And that's what we see with these cases. But we can't let that part be missed on us, that government is the game and politics is how it's played. If you're not playing politics or playing the game of government, then how that saying go, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We just on the menu, fam. But that day is over. And I think they see that and they know that now. The motto of the platform is, don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.
Peace.